part of what God wants to do during the Christmas season is to really show us what human beings should be like. And that's why I've entitled today's message, The Humanity of Christmas. Those of you who've been to our place know that we have a cat, and his name is Marlin. And Marlin catches birds, he kills birds, and he eats birds. Right? So, when he first started doing that, he used to bring the bird home inside. And so, as a sign of, look how cool I am, how amazing I am, I was able to catch a bird. I've graduated and now I'm an adult or whatever. But he soon realized that we do not like that, because we don't like having dead birds and feathers all over the house and drops of blood everywhere. So Kirsty especially used to scold him, and I've never had cats before, so I don't know how to scold a cat, because apparently one of the ways you do that is by their thighs. You just give them a whack, like, so hopefully they feel the pain, and hopefully they don't do it again. But every single time you scold a cat to not catch and kill and eat a bird, it keeps on doing it, and it never stops doing it. And that's one of the differences between an animal and a human being. Because a human being has the ability to stop and pause and think about their choices, right? A human being has the ability to think about what they're doing is good or bad, whether it's love or hate, whether it adds value or takes value away. And I feel like in today's world, we're kind of a little bit confused about what it means to be a human being. In fact, I think we've always been confused about what it means to be a human being. It's just different today. Part of the argument is that, when does a baby start to become a human? And so a lot of people say, no, a baby is not a human until it comes into the world from, when it's birth. And as science begins to show that when the egg and the sperm fuse, there is a spark, there is a light. We say, look, there's evidence, right? It's life. But then those very same people who say life doesn't start in the womb say, yeah, that's life, but they're not yet a human. Because according to those people, a human is only someone who has then the ability to make choices, right? And so there's this debate going on about when a human being is a human being. But I think the narrative of Christmas already puts that to bed, right? Because if the Holy Spirit overshadowed Mary and she conceived and had the Son of God in her for 9 months roughly, that already says that when God became human, he was already human in the womb. Right? He didn't become human when he came out the womb. He became human when he was conceived in the womb, right? So that already puts that to bed. But then now, when the baby comes out the womb, now we're also confused, because even back in Jesus' time, you were really considered a great human being, or you arrived, if either you knew the law, you were a religious teacher, or if you had a lot of money, right? Because those who had a lot of money seemed like they were highly favored by God, and they were revered and honored, whereas those who were just getting by or who were poor perhaps fall a little lower down on the ladder of what it means to be a human being. It seems to change from generation to generation. In our generation, people who have a lot of letters in front of them, like those who are highly educated, perhaps, they are the upper echelons because they know a lot, they have a lot of knowledge, or perhaps you're a president or whatever the case is. But even in our day and age, we don't quite know what it means to be human, because you may look at a guy standing by the robot and he is dirt poor, literally, and his clothes are torn and he's hungry. I wonder if someone looks at that person and go, that person has equal value and worth as I have, me sitting in my car, driving around. Somehow in our estimation, there's even like different levels about what it means to be a human being. And that's part of why I love Christmas, is when God became human, he changed everything. He changed everything. And so today I just want to land on John 1:14. This is John writing about God and the whole process of becoming human. And That's what it says. So the Word became human and made his home among us. So let's start off with that. The Word became human, and then what? And he made his home amongst us. You know, recently I watched an interview, or clips of an interview of Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk is a fascinating character. Some love him, some hate him, some love to hate him. But I know that his origins is from South Africa, right? In fact, he lived almost 18 years roughly of his life here. So he's actually born and bred South African. If you listen closely, you can still hear the South African tone in his words, you know. But Elon Musk is never known to be a believer in God or the divine, right? I listened to a biography of his a while back, and he's never known to be someone who believes in God, in the divine. But in this interview, one of the latest interviews on a podcast, the lady asked him, she starts off by saying, "Who do you look up to?" So Elon Musk paused for a few moments, and he goes, "The Creator." And I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then her follow-up question is, where do you stand with God? And he thinks and he says, well, God is the Creator. And I'm like, this is getting very, very interesting, you know. And then her follow-up question to that is like, you know, but I thought, you know, you don't really believe in God and all of that, you know. And his response to her was, well, all of this must have come from somewhere. There must have been a source to all of this. Everyone just has different labels, you know. And when I listened to him, I was like, oh my goodness, is this guy slowly progressing from being an atheist to at least being a theist of some sort? You know, I mean, that's how the great C.S. Lewis progressed, right? First he was religious, quote unquote, and then he was an atheist, and then he became a theist, and then he became a Christian, a follower of Jesus. You know, so I'm looking at this interview of Elon Musk, and I'm like, there's hope. You know, there's always hope, and it seems like even with his brainy mind, he's come to realize that all of this couldn't just have come together by accident. And even science shows that there is an invisible quantum, a unified quantum field all around us. It's magnetic, but what this quantum field does is that it organizes everything. It puts everything into order, right? And so even from that, you can begin to go, this is very interesting. But this is why what John says here is so important. The Word became human, right? So if you just believed in this quantum unified magnetic field, right, it does not have a personality, it's just a force. I mean, those of you who love Star Wars, you know, may the force be with you type thing. It's just a force, but a force is very impersonal, you know, and so you can't really have a relationship with a force in that sense. But what John is trying to say here in his own language is that invisible quantum energetic magnetic field that you do not see, that organizes everything, is actually a being. He is a person. He has a personality, right? But in order for us to relate to him, he had to become one of us, and that's why the Word had to become flesh. And so that the dividing line between being a follower of Jesus and not is if you're in the place of Elon Musk, who believe in something out there, just this word, or like the original Greek is the logos, right? There is some kind of intelligent design behind everything. It's an intelligent consciousness. In fact, some people would say intelligent love or loving intelligence. But they don't want to cross the line between that and making it seem like that loving intelligence, or that intelligent consciousness, actually became a human being. And this is why Christmas is so important, because without that, you still won't have a relationship with this sort of thing that is out there. You know what I mean? You're still disconnected. It still makes you less and less human, because if you were created in His image, then it only serves to reason that when you are reconnected back to Him is when you become more and more human. Right? So that's why I love the Christmas story, because lying in that manger is this invisible God becoming visible, becoming flesh. And so I have a lot of hope for a lot of people, even a lot of atheists. You know, when you speak to them, a lot of them don't actually say they don't believe in a God. They're just very angry with God. They're just very bitter with God, so they kind of choose to ignore Him, you know. And this is why I believe the person of Jesus and His coming to the world is so central to our testimony, our witness as Christians to the world. And that's why it's important that we are the ones who celebrate Christmas more than anyone else. Yeah. We're the ones who just go crazy and have a bash because we're telling the world, hey, this invisible God became visible so that my humanity could be restored. Because otherwise, without Jesus, think about it, as human beings, we have no perfect reference point, right, for what it means to be human. We don't. Because people will rise up and fall, and every scholar, every leader of every movement will rise up in every century, but somehow you look at them and you're like, I like some of the things that you say, but somehow, you know, it doesn't quite fit, you know. But with Jesus, you know, even when He said, can any one of you accuse me of any sin? Like no one could accuse Him of any wrongdoing. And then you go, there must be something about this Jesus, and because He came into this world, now I have a perfect reference point about what it means to be fully human, to be fully alive. And so that's why I love John when he says this, the Word became human and He made His home amongst us. He had to do that in order for us to know God. And then he carries on. He says in the next part of the verse, He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness. Now, I know some of your translations say He was full of grace and truth. I love this translation because I think it alliterates what grace and truth is further. Because unfailing love, I mean, you can just say love, but if you say unfailing love, that changes the very dynamic and aspect of love, you know. Because almost any human being can love, but in our brokenness, you will struggle to have unfailing love. You will struggle to give unfailing love. So what really is this unfailing love? It's the kind of love, well, if you look at the adjective, it doesn't fail, right? It means that it's the kind of love that Jesus has. It does not fail. It does not fail you. And so if you were to look back on your life and think about the moments where His love never failed you, I think you can recount many, many moments, many, many instances. I mean, the latest one I experienced, at least in a big way, was about 15 months ago. You know, in September of last year, when I was at the lowest of the low before my sabbatical. And I've mentioned this before, but there were some of the things that I accused God of. It was just horrendous if you even think about it. And one of the things I said to Him was, you are a sadistic tyrant because you just want stuff from me. You know, and I never get anything back, or I never get my rewards, or I never get the life I want. And the most incredible way I experience that unconditional love is when I don't want anything to do with this God. You know, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of done, because, you know, it seems like you're no different from any other God. You know, and I'll never forget the next morning where He gently just pulled me in, He coaxed me in, He sort of wooed me in, and He said, just come and spend time with me. And I'm like, no, I don't really want to, and I don't want to be inauthentic, you know. But He said, just come, you know. And I'll never forget the way He put this strong impression on my heart, and He said, see, you can call me the most horrible, horrendous things that are not true, and yet I still love you. And yet I still love you. And that's when I realized that is unfailing love. It's unconditional love, that irrespective of me and who I am and the choices that I've made and my own brokenness, He says, my love will never fail you. You see, that really gets us going, right? That really should get us going. And so it means that if Jesus is the perfect reference point of what it means to be human, then it means that if you as an individual, if you begin to grow in unfailing love towards others, then you know, I'm actually becoming more and more human, and I'm actually becoming more and more like Christ. Wow, I mean, unfailing love is something that we can explore the whole morning. It's unconditional. It keeps on giving. I mean, we explored love before in this church, but it really means that if you, as someone who's really experienced this kind of love from Jesus, it means that you're going to keep giving it out because you keep receiving it, right? It's like a cycle. It comes in and it goes out. It comes in and it goes out. It comes in and it goes out. And so John is saying this word became human. And if you want to know about what it really means to be human, number one, it's unfailing love. And number two, he says, it's faithfulness. Now, I know we like the word truth, right? So our translation says truth, which sort of great and truth. But I think where we are in this world today, we tend to think of truth like Chat GPT, yes, it's like Chat GPT. We want a walking Chat GPT, who can just give us all the right answers and all the facts about everything. But Jesus did not come to be a walking GPT, right? He didn't come to be a dispenser of facts and knowledge about everything. So that's not what truth means. But we love the word truth so much, and we have become about facts. But if you think about facts as well, facts change. Yeah. Have you ever thought about that? Facts change. Like the population of South Africa this year will not be the same next year. The percentage of unemployment this year will not be the same next year. Hopefully it's better and not worse. The stats of your favorite rugby player or cricket player, it's a fact that someone might average so much this season, but next season, it's not the same, right? So facts also change. In fact, because of science, because we have better technology, we're discovering more and more about the human mind, the brain, for example, which was not true previously, right? Before, for example, we used to think, it's only the right brain that's emotional and the left brain that's logical. But actually, we're discovering now that both right and left are both emotional and reason. Right? So facts change. And so if our whole lives is about finding truth, finding what is true about everything, we don't become more and more human, we become more and more robotic. Think about it. So it means that even in our relationship with people, they cannot connect with us on a human level. We're just dispensers of facts and information. When you're with someone like that, you feel like you cannot connect with them on a heart level because all they're doing is just telling you about what's right and what's wrong, and what's true and false. But this is, today's sash is full of giggles. It's because, but I like it when someone laughs because it means I'm connecting with someone, right? But here's the thing that I love why this translation uses the word faithfulness as the word truth, because faithfulness doesn't just mean someone who is full of faith, it means that someone is true. Right? So if someone is true, it means that they are trustworthy. It means that they're not divided within themselves. And that's why you can say about God that He's the same yesterday, today, and forever, because He does not change. And so someone who's true, it means that they are trustworthy. And so you can gauge yourself about whether you're becoming more and more human if you are true. And if you know you can be true to yourself. If you know that what you are behind closed doors is the same as you are in front of everyone else. And I think this is the most beautiful thing about Jesus, is that you know that there is no hidden agenda. You know that there's nothing behind him. Like if he's loving you, there's no agenda behind it. He loves you because He is love. Right? It changes the ball game completely. In my life, and I think you probably would say the same, it's really hard to find someone who is true. And the reason why is because of our own brokenness. We've just piled up layer upon layer upon layer of falsehood, layer upon layer of personalities that we want the world to see us that way, but it's not the true you. It's not the you that God created you to be. It's not the you that God knit together in your mother's womb, special, unique, no one else like you. And so Jesus being being faithful, being true, Jesus having unconditional, unfailing love is actually what sets him apart from anyone else who has ever lived. It's what sets him apart, and I believe it is what should set the followers of Jesus apart as well from others. This is what it means to be truly human, and we would not have known this if God did not decide to become human. It changes the ballgame completely, guys, and it really makes this Christian faith actually more exciting, more adventurous, because it's not rigid anymore. It's almost like it's not like an exam, where you pass and you or a degree where you get it and you pass and you qualify. Now you're a doctor or now you're a lawyer. It's like you don't graduate into becoming a Christian. You know what I mean? When you become more and more like Christ, there's so much more and more to explore, more and more to become. You have more and more unfailing love. You find that maybe a season ago, a few years ago, it was hard for me to have unfailing love. Like, I only loved if it was conditional. I only loved if people behaved in a certain way. I only loved if they were favorable to me. But now you're going, hey, I'm having more patience. My love is actually, it holds strong. It doesn't fail. Hey, I'm actually becoming more true. Like, I'm finding that when a group of people, like, I'm not pretending anymore. I just am who I am. And this is what it means to be fully human. And because of our brokenness, because of what's happened in our lives, because of our pain, like, whilst we are still human, our humanity is being dehumanized. Right? And dehumanization, friends, is rife all over the world. I mean, it doesn't matter if Donald Trump doesn't think like you or acts like you. Don't dehumanize him. It doesn't matter if Cyril Ramaphosa is not the kind of president you want. Don't dehumanize him in front of others. And even worse, don't put it on YouTube. Like, you will be shocked how often we dehumanize another human being. Just by the things that we say, just by the attitudes that we have. You see, Jesus came to restore something so glorious about us, and that is we are human beings created in the image of God. And so what God really wants is for us to be reflectors of Him, right? So when He looks at us, He should be able to see Himself in the mirror. Yeah? And because He doesn't, He's like, well, I've got to come. Because you're not going to be able to fix it yourselves. So I've got to come and take on flesh and become a human being, right? But also, us as mirrors is not just for God to see Himself in us, it's for us to reflect Him to the world, right? So that mirror works both ways. That's what it means to be human. And so it works the other way around, and that's why I love Christmas, is because this baby didn't stay a baby. This baby grew up to be a full-grown adult. And so when I look at Jesus, it's like I can see my true self. There's nothing else or no one else that will give you a reflection of who you truly are. And that is why a life-giving relationship with Jesus is the best thing you could ever have. Because then you know, okay, actually I can see which part of me is broken. I can see which part of me is not fully human. And that's why Jesus He is everything. He is really everything. And so this Christmas season, like, we should be the people who should rejoice the most and celebrate the most, because now we have the perfect reference point of what it means to be a human being. Now we can stand in front of this person who came 2,000 years ago and look at him and go, okay, now I see where I need to grow. Now I see which part of me has been dehumanized. But also He's a perfect reference point for everyone else as well. It's Jesus, friends. It always has been about Jesus. There is no one else like Jesus Christ. The way I like to say it is, the Christ became Jesus. The invisible Christ, the one who made everything and who holds everything together, this invisible magnetic field, became human, became Jesus. But this Jesus is always the Christ. And he will forever always be known as Jesus Christ. So for a lot of people, they might not even say the name Christ, but they're progressing towards who this Christ is. Perhaps someone like an Elon Musk. But this Christ has to be Jesus for them. You see the difference? So someone like Elon Musk, this Christ has to be Jesus. He has to come to a point in his life where he has to say that this baby that was born 2,000 years ago is the Christ who became human. And he's the one, he is the only one who can restore my humanity again. He is the only one who can connect me back to God. You see, when you cross that line, well, that's what makes all the difference, right? So that's my prayer for the Elon Musks of the world and for everyone else of the world, that there is hope, because I see that it's almost like when we're knowing more and more of these things, we can connect what we know which is true from our heart to someone else's heart. So maybe a practical outcome of this Christmas is be aware of those conversations you have with people around the Christmas season. You know, just be aware of how you can connect the humanity of Jesus, who was born 2,000 years ago, to that person's humanity. Because yes, you may be eating nice food, yes, you may be giving one another gifts, but there's always a connection point, right? And that connection point has to do with you and how you have experienced this Jesus in this world, right? That's the connection point, not facts, not throwing Bible verses at people, but how has this Jesus been real to you in your life? And that's the connecting point, friends. And hopefully that connecting point will connect that person or those people you talk to this Jesus. Because we can say a lot about the Christ, but we've got to now personalize him to become Jesus. He's always Jesus Christ, but people have to make that transition, right? And this is my prayer, is that this Christmas will be a different Christmas for so many other people in the world, because we, as followers of Jesus, will now actually take the time to begin to think about our own love, whether it's unfailing or not, and to think about us and whether we are true or not, like Christ, like Jesus. Because that's when I know I'm making progress, is that I'm beginning to have unfailing love towards others, and that I am true. I hope that, I hope that by the end of my life, however long it is, that's what will be written on my tombstone. Like, I don't want my achievements to be written on the tombstone. Like, who I am as a human being, like, I want that to be written on my tombstone. Yes, I can never become fully like Jesus, but I can become more and more like him. And that for me is enough. That is enough. No matter how many houses I've had, no matter the type of cars I've driven, no matter how much money I've earned, like that's not important. If the most important thing about me should be how I treated another human being. That should be the most important thing about me. Did I have unfailing love for them? And was I true to them? That for me changes everything. It means that, wow, this is something I can keep growing into, I can keep working on. Like it's big. I never pass, you know what I mean? It's not like there's no line that I finally cross. It's like I'm becoming more and more like Jesus. And friends, I can tell you, this is what people need in the world, is people becoming more and more like Jesus. I think we have too many Christians in the world who are telling everyone about Christ, which is great, but it's never personal. It's never Jesus. It's never Jesus. This is what the world needs this Christmas, friends. Let me pray for us.